All right, so we just had the face-off for Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. too. Well, actually, if you think about it like this, right, we didn't get a face-off for the first fight. We got a face-off for the original proposed date in 2022, but we never actually got a face-off for the first fight. That was because, obviously, the whole Eggate situation, there was a lot of friction around at that time, so we didn't get the face-to-face. So we did get, or the face-off, so we did get it this time, all right? And it was interesting. Look, you're always going to have entertainment when you have Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn there, whether it's in the ring or whether it's in a studio where they're doing a face-off. You know, you're always going to have entertainment when you have them there. For the simple reason, and I think this face-off illustrates it perfectly. For the simple reason you'll always have entertainment is because Conor Benn went into this at the start and was saying, I'm cool, I'm this, that, and the other. I mean, within the first minute, Chris Eubank Jr. already had Conor Benn. Everything Chris Eubank Jr. was trying to do by getting Conor Benn rattled, by getting him upset, by getting him... Conor Benn's a very emotional character. He's a bit like his dad in that sense. He's very emotional. He wears his heart on his sleeve. The problem is, that can be good in a sense of, well, when you're in the ring, you know, you can be a bit ferocious early on. You can let the shots go, stuff like that. But it wears a lot of energy. It takes its toll on... I think it takes its toll on fighters physically sometimes. I mean, I think they tend to kind of fall off the cliff a little bit quicker than fighters who are more calm and measured. And Conor Benn, certainly you see it when he's in the ring, when he really starts getting like the emotions going. You saw it early on in his career against Cedric Pena when he got hurt. You know, he was swinging wildly for the fences. He was thinking he was in a street fight. But unlike someone like a Fabio Wardley, who lets those shots go, when you hurt him, he goes into, you know, a furious rage and is throwing these bombs. Even though it's reckless with someone like a Fabio Wardley, there's still an element of composure there. You know, he's putting it on you. Yeah, he's open. Whereas Conor Benn's just reckless, just completely reckless. And he's always been like that. And you can see that in this face-off. I mean, instantly, Conor Benn, just like that, was biting on everything Eubank Jr. was doing, was throwing. They're just biting on everything. And Conor Benn, I think, is the truest sense of if you say something loud enough, or if you say a lie enough times, it becomes the truth. Because about 10 minutes into this face-off, everything Eubank was saying, Conor Benn, no, what are you saying, you do it, and, you know, trying to be, you know, the hard Essex guy who was raised in Spain or in Australia, you know, got everything he wanted, you know, that whole, I like the way Chris Eubank Jr. kind of alluded to the fact that, you know, growing up in Brighton, he got kicked out of private school. He did eventually, you know, end up with the wrong crowd, but he made reference to Conor Benn kind of essentially having a similar upbringing in a sense of he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, but yeah, he's all the tattoos trying to be gangster, which I've always found that very cringe from Benn. And at the end of the day, Ben's pushing 30. He's what, 27, 28? And I just find it, like, if he was 21, 22, I'd understand it. But the guy's nearly 30. He's a family man, and here he is bragging about, I've got a £500,000 Rolls Royce that you paid for. Well, 1 minute it was a Rolls Royce, then it was a Bentley. You know, so there you go. But Conor Benn, about 10 minutes into this, was saying stuff like, oh, you haven't got me. You see, he thinks he has me rattled, but he doesn't. Mate, every single thing he was saying, you just kept shouting over him. You could tell instantly by the tone of his voice, by the body language, he was peeved, right? He started talking about, you know, putting Chris Eubank Jr. in the hospital again, saying that he did it the first time. Chris Eubank Jr. actually released the footage of the ambulance being blocked. Now, I only seen like bits of it, but he's saying it was blocked from him getting to the hospital. And he was saying that was purely stemming from dehydration, which I do tend to believe. Because obviously Chris Eubank Jr., look, it hurts him enough to make middleweight, much less slap a rehydration clause in place. And Chris Eubank Jr. very cleverly brought that up, where he said basically, words to the effect of, if you're so confident, why did you stick a rehydration clause in? And the best Conor Benn could really do, because you got to bear in mind, when Terence Crawford was getting ready to fight Canelo, Conor Benn was one of the people who was interviewed about it, and he was saying, you know, I think Crawford's, he didn't say stupid, but I don't think he's doing the right thing. He needs to rehydrate. He basically saying you need to basically drain Canelo to have best chance of winning. No, that's the difference between a boy and a man, right? Crawford is a man through and through. I was like, I don't care, I'm just going to beat you anyway. And the best Conor Benn could do was to say, well, there was world titles on the line, so there shouldn't have been one. Well, there's no world titles on the line here, so why should there be one then? It makes no sense. And, you know, Conor Benn saying, oh, well, you know, I'm moving up to weight. It's like Canelo moved to light heavyweight, as Chris Eubank Jr. said. Plenty of fighters have moved up in weight. or they haven't gone and started, screaming from the hills, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, because automatically by doing that, you're talking about a built-in excuse. And he mentioned Tank Davis with Ryan Garcia. Literally hardly anyone classes that. Because, yeah, Tank Davis beat Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia was drained to hell. Like, he's fighting at welterweight now. That was at 136 pounds. And it had a rehydration clause in place. So when people talk about wins and saying, oh, well, this fight, it's like, yeah, but, like, it taints the win. You look at Tank Davis, and everyone who looks at the Ryan Garcia fight and looks at the Ryan Garcia win will just say the same. Yeah, but Ryan Garcia was horrendously drained. There's no ifs or buts. He was horrendously drained. So you look at that and you think, well, did he fight the best version of Ryan Garcia? No. Did he fight a Ryan Garcia who was fully hydrated? No. Did he fight a Ryan Garcia at his natural weight? No. Therefore, how much credit can you really give him? It's like playing a video game. You're playing it as it is, as normal. The other guy has cheat codes, but he's allowed to use them. Well, who's the better player then? Like, who's the better at the game? Is the guy who has the cheat codes, who gives himself infinite health, infinite ammo in Call of Duty? Is he better than the guy who doesn't have any of that and is going around, getting killed, and he ends up with, 50 deaths? No. You'd say, well, he has every advantage, So I think Conor Benn's argument fell flat. I think everything Conor Benn did in this really did fall flat, because Eubank was just winding him up and winding him up and winding him up again. And again, Conor Benn just seemed to fall for every one of them. It's just a case of Conor Benn falling for everything Chris Eubank Jr. said. And it did appear to me that he was rattled going into this, or even going into this, yeah, really. Certainly leaving it. Conor Benn trying to make it out as though, oh, but Eubank says this and this, that, and the other, and, mentioned the rehydration clause again. Eubank was saying, look, I got paid, and, I made some extra money, even though we probably had to give some of it away because of the whole, board and stuff like that. Which, again, I go back to, that really is crazy. That you fine a fighter for not hitting a rehydration clause and not hitting a weight in a non-title fight. I mean, when you have fights up and down the country, there are middleweights up and down the country who have 10 rounders, non-titles, and they're weighing 163 pounds. Where's the fines then, So there was no consistency with this. But it did, because it feels to me, and I said it in a video, that this does kind of feel like it's gone a bit under the radar, this fight. The whole card, really. There was a lot of excitement the first time around about it. But this one, there just doesn't. There just seems to be, it's just there, so to speak. There's not really anything to it. Whereas this, I think, has definitely helped it. I think they maybe should have released this face-off earlier. To be honest with you, I know last time they went on Piers Morgan. Say what you want to say. I don't like Piers Morgan at all. But it did help things. It did help promote this fight. It did help sell it. I think that did very good numbers on YouTube, that face-off, or Piers Morgan Uncensored, whatever it's called. It did good numbers. So I think in terms of promotion, this maybe was needed a bit earlier rather than doing it now. But ultimately, I enjoyed the face-off. It was funny because at the end of the day, as I said about Conor Benn, he does strike me as a little bit immature. And I think you could see it here. You often see it, especially nowadays, when someone's having a debate or having an argument. If someone's speaking, and it's always a bugbear of mine, because you go back to like the 1960s, 70s, even if it was like a face-off, if someone's speaking, if they're making a point or whatever, it's really childish to go and start screaming over them. And that's all Conor Benn did every time Chris Eubank Jr. was saying. So he was saying, well, this, well, you say that, but this, and this. It's like, mate, how old are you? Are you pushing 30 or are you pushing 13? And as I always say, like, if you're in a debate or a face-off, who do you think got the better of that? A lot of people would just side with the person who's louder. But they're not actually saying any real things, Just going off topic here, right? But who was it? I think I seen an article or something about it, that the first US presidential debate was between Nixon and Kennedy. And it was televised, right? And the televised audience, because obviously John F. Kennedy, he did have a bit of an aura about him. He was very, he had an aura about him, JFK. But they said that the people who watched the television debate felt that JFK got the better of Nixon. But the people who listened to it over the radio, where you're not seeing the people, you're just seeing, and probably a poor example because they were a lot more respectful than people nowadays, they actually had a bit of decency back then. But the people who listened to it on the radio all felt Nixon got the better of it. And you would probably say Nixon was probably the sharper of the two, just in terms of obviously what happened with his presidency, but you know what I mean. But you get what I mean. It's like when they can see someone's body language and stuff like that, it makes them think that they're doing better than it actually is. And I think that's the way it can be nowadays. When you see someone who's trying to get their point across, but they can't because someone's just shouting over them and you're almost shutting down anything they have to say, even if what they're saying is valid. So it was an interesting one to watch. I'd recommend you go and watch it. It's on DAZN's YouTube channel, so let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Has this amped you up a little bit more for the fight? Let me know. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you could, smash the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, peace.